So I work in media part-time and I work in research part-time in cognitive science. So the media is sports media, and it draws heavily on the cog science research all the time because we're thinking about how we process things, how we make sense of them. The two careers are kind of co-evolved. So the media keeps giving you new angles to take into the research, and the research keeps giving you new angles to take into the media. My entryway into cognitive science was through learning more the philosophy side, how we experience the world as bodies, and the anthropology, using ethnography as a research method. So looking at how people understand the world that we're in and how as researchers we can write about that world that's fair to those people but also makes sense to other people. And I found those two skill sets, how we experience things and writing about how other people experience things, set me up really well for writing stories in sport media. I started as a writer because I just wasn't reading the kind of articles about sport that I wanted to read, and all you need to be a writer is, a laptop and email. You can write for anyone, and then suddenly you'd need photos to go with the article, so I picked up a camera and started working as a photographer, and then suddenly you need website skills, so I learned website skills, and then I got jobs working at the back end of websites, just getting articles up, or sometimes I write my own articles, or sometimes the bike industry contacts me about a new product and I have to pitch it to different magazines. I was really interested in drama, but I was really good at maths. I started studying physiotherapy and I did that for a year. I loved learning about bodies, what movement said about emotion and behaviour and character than pathology. I stopped the physio degree after a year and went to performance studies, sport as performance or a church service as performance. Did that for 3 years and did cultural studies at the same time, so I was part of an arts degree. I left, no idea where to go or what to do, and got a job in a graduate development program with the Department of Health and Ageing, putting stuff in alphabetical order, and I was copying and pasting things and changing the font, and I missed being in the world of ideas. So I went back to uni and I did honours in performance studies, and that was interesting because I got the freedom there to start studying bike riding, which was my hobby and my passion, as performance, and that grew into a PhD over 3 years. And then during all that, I started working in media, mostly to pay the bills, and it's meant working at SBS for I think the last 4 years, doing back-end website stuff during things like the Tour de France. I got really interested in my research in some of the filtering processes that happen when we do stuff really, really fast and how we make sense of these things, and some of the things that like audiences yell from the side of a track and how that actually changes how a bike racer might navigate a section of course. And so I got this chance to work with John Sutton at Macquarie Uni as a research assistant and expand on that stuff and learn more about these filtering strategies and learn more about skill acquisition and skill transfer, and throw some of these examples from the real world to some of the more abstract theoretical discussions of the same stuff. And that helps you unpack riding down a mountain bike track, but it helps you push the theory in some interesting directions as well. And then that grew into one cool project that we did was I got to learn the trapeze for a year as a investigation into skill transfer. So a lot of the theory on skill talks about being really new at something or really, really good at something, and we don't read much theoretically about when someone really good at something goes into a new scenario and how do those skills carry over. And we were able to throw that back at the cog science literature on memory recall and long-term working memory. So that's a project I'm writing up at the moment. And as I was racing mountain bikes, it helped me test products and have event entries to things that I didn't have the spare budget to pay for myself. And then that developed into this other career at the same time. And that career has given me the chance to fly to amazing places in the world and have experiences that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise, like meeting one of the founders of mountain biking in the US last year, or ended up in New Zealand on a helicopter one morning that carried our bikes to the top of a hill and had to document the journey back down. And again, those research skills, which for me are, largely descriptive processes, how we make sense of things and experience things, translate really well into relaying these sport experiences back out to a general community as well. I think what we're seeing is a time when there's a lot more interdisciplinary research and a lot more interdisciplinary groups carrying out that research. So I think cog science offers a lot to looking at technology and user experience and making big data meaningful to real world problems. So I have this interest in life and in research in these high risk, high pressure scenarios. And I think there's a real place for cog science either in consultation or in research teams looking at, things like how it's already happening, like how you might design a cockpit in an airplane that means there's less chance of stuff going wrong when you're in those situations. So how do we move between theory and real experience and this different processing that we have? Or looking at teams working in high pressure things and communication systems between them that aren't just verbal. I think as well, somewhere that I really like that cog science is going is starting to look at when people who are really good at things do them really well, rather than just what happens when things go wrong and trying to repair them all the time. And I've just worked on a project again with some other colleagues at Macquarie Uni looking at Australian male professional cricket players, and not just looking at the physical game but looking at resilience and mental skills and emotion skills. Cog science has a lot to offer there as we start to understand sport as something where thinking is actually a really important part. Attention to detail is super important. A lot of media work's very solitary. There's not many editors anymore. You have to edit your own writing. So if you publish something and it's full of typos, you're letting down the organisation. So that kind of stuff is really important. Teamwork is super important. Even when you're working alone a lot, it's, I think, important to be generous to people and think about how your role fits in with what they're doing and how you can make their job easier by doing your job well. Research and media aren't as different as they seem. I think things like, research and even if that's at your undergrad level, you develop this ability to scan a bunch of data and pull out something meaningful and tell a story with that data. I think that's incredibly useful wherever you're working now. I think one of the best things I read recently was that the jobs that people are going to be doing in 5 or 10 years, they don't exist yet. Like social media only became a thing in the last 10 years, and now there's jobs for people running social media for organisations, or you look at how much Facebook is used by workplaces. When I was working on the Tour de France this year for SBS, most of it wasn't even about writing articles, it was about how we share those articles in social media. And I think what's interesting in terms of studying now is looking at the general skill set that you're doing rather than necessarily worrying about what job it's going to map onto. Because, you see a job advertised for a social media expert and you can't be that expert at it if it's only just been invented. But if you bring a skill set like attention to detail and like monitoring audience engagement and understanding the analytics of what works, then you can reinvent or develop into where these new things are growing. I think another thing I'd say is not to shut down your hobbies in favour of work. I think explore things that you find interesting. I've been able to do so much because I get so excited about riding bikes, or got interested in photography, and that's become a really valuable work skill. So whether it's a sport or film editing or music, keep doing it and value what it brings in terms of balance, but you never know where it might be useful work skill as well. And I think the other thing is, I wish someone had told me not to be in such a rush. I think there's an expectation that you find, your job straight out of uni, and I don't know anyone really, well, a couple of people maybe if they're lucky, but be prepared to experiment and see what the journey is and where it takes you, and keep an open mind about where that might go and talk to people. Some of the best advice I got was think about what you can do for other people. If they're going to employ you, they need to know what you're going to be able to do for them. So value your health and value your time and value time with friends and family. And I think having that balance is really important, especially if it is a rocky career path. I think it's, the study that we've done on resilience shows that if you've got this better support network around you, you're a lot more stable in tackling those challenges as well.